The wind whispered secrets across the New Mexico desert, carrying with it the dreams of a girl who was anything but ordinary. Sarah Martinez's world was defined by the narrow streets of Las Cruces, a town where expectations were as flat and predictable as the surrounding landscape. But within the modest two-bedroom house on Mesquite Street, something extraordinary was taking shape. Roberto Martinez's hands told stories that words could never capture. Scarred and weathered from decades of military service, they were the hands of a man who had spent his life keeping machines and dreams in flight. As a retired Air Force mechanic, he understood the language of engines, the poetry of aerodynamics, in ways most people could never comprehend. His daughter Sarah was different. From the moment she could walk, she listened to his stories with an intensity that went beyond mere curiosity. The garage was their sanctuary. While other fathers might have spent weekends watching football or working on cars, Roberto transformed the space into a museum of aviation history. Model aircraft hung from the ceiling, each one a carefully crafted testament to human engineering. Vintage photographs of military aircraft covered the walls, black and white images of sleek machines that seemed to defy gravity itself. Sarah would spend hours tracing the lines of each aircraft, her small fingers mapping out the complex geometries that most children her age couldn't even begin to understand. "See this, Mia?" Roberto would say, pulling down a meticulously detailed model of an F-16 fighting Falcon. "This isn't just a machine. This is freedom. This is possibility." Sarah's mother, Elena, a high school science teacher, watched these moments with a mixture of amusement and quiet pride. She understood passion, had built her entire career on igniting curiosity in young minds. But Sarah was different. Where other children saw toys, Sarah saw complex systems. Where others heard engine noise, she heard mathematical symphonies. The first time Sarah truly captured her father's attention was during a summer afternoon when she was just 8 years old. Roberto had been explaining the principles of lift, demonstrating with a piece of paper how air pressure creates flight. Most children would have nodded and forgotten, but Sarah began drawing diagrams, asking questions that revealed a mind far beyond her years. "But Papa," she had asked, her eyes blazing with an intellectual fire, "what if you could manipulate the airflow differently? Couldn't you create more efficient lift?" Roberto had stopped, looked at his daughter, and in that moment knew she was destined for something extraordinary. The nickname Falcon-12 emerged almost by accident. During a family barbecue, Roberto was telling stories about his military days. "You're like a falcon," he had said to Sarah, watching her navigate the family gathering with a predatory focus. Always watching, always calculating. One of his old Air Force buddies, Jack Thompson, had been there that day. Falcon-12, he had laughed. "That's her call sign." The name stuck, first as a joke, then as something more. School was a complex landscape for Sarah. She was too analytical for her peers, too curious for traditional learning structures. While other girls talked about pop stars and television shows, Sarah devoured books about aeronautical engineering, meteorology, and advanced mathematics. Her teachers oscillated between frustration and fascination. She wasn't difficult, she was different. Her physical education was as intense as her intellectual pursuits. Elena made sure Sarah understood that dreams required more than just mental preparation. She enrolled her in gymnastics, then martial arts, and rock climbing. Each discipline taught body awareness, spatial recognition, the kind of skills that would later prove crucial in aviation. By the time she reached high school, Sarah had become something of a local enigma. The quiet girl who could solve complex physics problems, who could explain the intricate aerodynamics of bird flight, who seemed more comfortable with technical manuals than teenage gossip. Her classmates didn't understand her. The boys found her intimidating. The girls saw her as an outsider. But Sarah never felt alone. She had her father's stories, her mother's support, and the growing certainty that her path was unlike anyone else's. The desert became her first classroom. Weekends were spent with Roberto, learning about wind patterns, studying how aircraft interact with atmospheric conditions. He taught her to see beyond the visible, to understand that true mastery came from comprehending the invisible forces that govern motion. A great pilot, Roberto would say, doesn't just fly an aircraft. A great pilot becomes the aircraft. These weren't just lessons. They were initiations into a world of possibility that most people never glimpsed. Each conversation, each model airplane, each technical discussion was preparing Sarah for a journey she couldn't yet fully imagine. Little did she know that the call sign Falcon-12, given so casually that summer afternoon would become a prophecy. A declaration of a spirit that couldn't be contained. A promise of a future that would challenge everything everyone thought they knew about limits, about potential, about what a person could achieve. The spark was already there, burning, waiting, ready to become a flame that would light up the sky. The recruitment office stood like a fortress of institutional indifference, its walls lined with portraits of men who had defined military aviation for generations. Rows of crisp uniforms, polished metals, and stern photographs created an atmosphere designed to intimidate. But Sarah Martinez walked in with something far more powerful than intimidation tactics. She carried the accumulated weight of impossible dreams. Her application packet was a weapon disguised as paperwork. Each document was a precisely calculated strike against conventional expectations. Academic transcripts that read like a mathematical symphony, perfect scores in advanced calculus. Physics that danced with theoretical complexity, and research papers that made seasoned professors sit up and take notice. Physical fitness reports that demolished stereotypes. Her body was a machine of calculated strength, every muscle a testament to disciplined preparation. The initial screening was a gauntlet designed to weed out the unprepared. Most candidates approached it as a challenge. Sarah saw it as an equation to be solved. Major David Reynolds was the first significant obstacle. A career military man with 30 years of service etched into the lines of his face, he had seen thousands of applicants. Women, especially women of color, were statistical anomalies in his world of fighter pilot recruitment. When Sarah's file landed on his desk, he approached it with the clinical detachment of someone who had seen dreams crushed 1,000 times before. "Martinez," he muttered, scanning the first page. His finger traced her academic achievements, pausing at her research on advanced aerodynamic principles. A small furrow appeared between his eyebrows, the first crack in his professional skepticism. The physical assessments were brutal by design. A series of tests engineered to push human limits endurance challenges that broke both body and spirit. While other candidates showed signs of straying, Sarah moved with a calculated precision that bordered on mathematical elegance. Obstacle courses became problem-solving exercises. Endurance runs transformed into data collection opportunities. Her fellow candidates represented a cross-section of military ambition. There were the classic archetypes: trust fund kids from military families, farm boys with something to prove, urban recruits seeking a path to education and opportunity. And then there was Sarah, an anomaly that defied categorization. During a particularly grueling simulation exercise, the candidates were placed in a high-stress environment designed to test decision-making under extreme pressure. While others fumbled, second-guessed, or broke down, Sarah's mind operated with the cold efficiency of a supercomputer. Each challenge was a complex algorithm, each decision a precisely calculated response. The instructors began to take notice. Whispers started first, skeptical, then increasingly tinged with something resembling respect. "Who is this Martinez girl?" became a recurring question in briefing rooms and officer lounges. Her background was her secret weapon. The daughter of a mechanic and a science teacher, Sarah understood systems in a way most candidates did not. Where others saw challenges, she saw interconnected problems waiting to be solved. Her mother's analytical approach to teaching and her father's mechanical intuition had created something extraordinary, a human being who could simultaneously think like an engineer, a mathematician, and a strategist. The psychological evaluations were particularly interesting. Most candidates presented themselves as standard military archetypes: the aggressive fighter, the dutiful patriot, the adventure seeker. Sarah was different. Her evaluations read like complex philosophical treatises. She spoke about aviation not as a career, but as a fundamental human endeavor, a method of understanding the relationship between human potential and technological innovation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead psychologist for the recruitment program, found herself fascinated. "This isn't just an applicant," she noted in her confidential report. "This is a paradigm shift waiting to happen." But fascination didn't mean acceptance. The military's institutional inertia was a formidable opponent. For every supporter Sarah gained, there were 3 more who saw her as a threat to established norms. Her gender, her ethnicity, her unconventional approach, each was a potential strike against her. The turning point came during a complex problem-solving assessment. The scenario involved a hypothetical mission with multiple layers of geopolitical complexity. While other candidates approached it with traditional military thinking, Sarah presented a solution that was nothing short of revolutionary. She didn't just solve the problem, she reimagined the entire operational framework. Major Reynolds found himself staring at her proposal, a mix of irritation and grudging respect brewing in his veteran's eyes. This wasn't just a good solution. This was a glimpse into a future of military strategy that most of his contemporaries couldn't even begin to comprehend. Falcon-12, he muttered, remembering the call sign her father had given her. It was starting to feel less like a nickname and more like a prophecy. The final decision wouldn't come easily. Sarah knew this. Each evaluation, each test was another equation to be solved, another system to be understood and navigated. She wasn't just fighting for a position in the military. She was fighting to redefine what was possible. As the recruitment process reached its critical stage, Sarah understood something profound. This wasn't just about becoming a pilot. This was about proving that potential knows no boundaries, that excellence is its own language, spoken beyond the narrow constraints of gender, race, or institutional expectation. The crucible was heating up, and Sarah Martinez was about to show everyone exactly what she was made of. Naval Air Station Pensacola rose from the Florida landscape like a cathedral of human ambition. Gleaming runways stretched beneath an endless sky, a proving ground where dreams were either forged or shattered. For Sarah Martinez, this was more than a training facility. It was the arena where every calculation, every moment of preparation would be tested against the most unforgiving judge of all, reality. The first day was a symphony of controlled chaos. Rows of candidates stood at attention, a human mosaic of raw potential and nervous energy. Sarah was a steady and controlled focus, her posture perfect, her eyes scanning the environment with the same analytical precision she applied to every challenge. Around her, young men and women fidgeted, their excitement and fear as palpable as the humid Florida air. Commander Jack Holloway, head of the training program, was a legend in military aviation circles. 62 years old, with skin weathered by decades of sun and sky, he had a reputation for being brutally honest and impossibly demanding. His first address to the new candidates was less a welcome and more a declaration of war. "You are not here to become pilots." His voice cut through the morning air like a knife. "You are here to prove you deserve the right to touch the sky. Every single one of you will be broken. Some of you will rebuild yourselves. Most of you will fail. The simulator room was Sarah's first true battlefield. Unlike traditional training approaches, modern fighter pilot preparation relied heavily on advanced simulation technology. These weren't simple video game-like experiences, but hyper-realistic environments that could replicate every conceivable flight scenario with terrifying accuracy. Sarah's approach was methodical. Where other candidates saw the simulators as a test of reflexes, she saw them as complex systems to be understood and mastered. Each simulation became a mathematical problem: wind resistance, aircraft dynamics, atmospheric conditions, potential threat vectors, all reduced to a series of calculated responses. Her first advanced combat simulation was a turning point. The scenario was brutal: multiple enemy aircraft, complex terrain, limited fuel, and a mission-critical objective. Most candidates would have relied on instinct and training. Sarah approached it like a chess grandmaster, seeing moves 10 steps ahead. Lieutenant Michael Rodriguez, one of the senior instructors, watched her performance with growing incredulity. The way she manipulated the aircraft wasn't just skilled, it was almost supernatural. Each movement was a precise calculation, each decision the result of instantaneous multivariable analysis. "Who is this Martinez?" he muttered to his colleague, reviewing her simulation data. The telemetry readouts were unlike anything they'd seen before. Not just successful, but optimized to a degree that seemed to defy conventional understanding. Physical training was equally demanding. The aviation candidate program was designed to push human limits. Underwater survival exercises, high G-tolerance tests, survival training in simulated hostile environments. Each challenge was a crucible that separated the exceptional from the merely competent. Sarah's background gave her unexpected advantages. Her years of martial arts training, her mother's emphasis on holistic physical conditioning, her father's lessons about mechanical efficiency, all converged in these moments. Where other candidates saw obstacles, she saw systems to be understood and overcome. The water survival training was particularly revealing. Candidates were dropped into open water, fully clothed with minimal equipment. They had to survive, navigate, and maintain composure under extreme stress. While others panicked, Sarah's mind remained crystal clear. She calculated water currents, understood heat loss dynamics, and approached survival as a complex problem to be solved. Her fellow candidates represented a microcosm of human ambition. There was Marcus Thompson, a third-generation military pilot from a prestigious military family. Tall, confident, with the kind of natural charisma that seemed bred into his bones. Elena Rodriguez, a first-generation immigrant whose parents had sacrificed everything for her opportunity. Jason Chun, a former Olympic-level swimmer who saw aviation as the next impossible challenge. And then there was Sarah, the woman who didn't fit any predetermined category. The psychological evaluations were as intense as the physical challenges. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, no relation to the lieutenant, conducted deep dive assessments that went far beyond standard military psychological screening. She was particularly interested in Sarah's unique cognitive approach. "It's not just about what she can do," Dr. Rodriguez noted in her confidential report. "It's about how she perceives challenges. Most candidates see problems. She sees systems waiting to be optimized. Nighttime brought its own challenges. While other candidates collapsed from exhaustion, Sarah would spend hours reviewing simulation data, creating her own analysis models, understanding not just how to complete missions, but how to do so with maximum efficiency. Her call sign, Falcon-12, began to take on a mythical quality among the instructors. What had started as a private family nickname was becoming a statement of potential, warning of something extraordinary brewing. Commander Holloway watched her with a mixture of skepticism and growing respect. In his decades of military service, he had seen countless candidates. But Sarah Martinez was different. She wasn't just trying to become a pilot. She was systematically dismantling every preconceived notion about what was possible. As the initial training phase reached its critical point, Sarah understood something profound. This wasn't just about flying aircraft. This was about expanding the very definition of human potential. Each simulation, each test was another opportunity to prove that excellence knows no predetermined boundaries. The sky was waiting, and Sarah Martinez was about to show everyone exactly how high she could fly. The briefing room was a cathedral of controlled tension. Satellite imagery, topographical maps, and classified intelligence documents covered every available surface. The air felt charged, electric with the weight of imminent action. Outside, the world teetered on the razor's edge of geopolitical uncertainty. Tensions in the South China Sea had escalated beyond diplomatic posturing. Intelligence suggested a complex network of maritime provocations that threatened to ignite a powder keg of international conflict. Sarah Martinez stood among her squadron, her presence both a contrast and a challenge to the established military narrative. Commander Richard Hawthorne, a veteran strategist with 3 decades of classified operations under his belt, controlled the briefing with surgical precision. His weathered hands moved across digital displays, revealing layers of strategic complexity that would make most minds buckle. "This isn't a standard reconnaissance mission." Hawthorne's voice cut through the room like a blade. "We're looking at a multi-layered operational environment where every decision could trigger a cascade of international consequences." The mission parameters were a labyrinth of strategic challenges. Their objective was to conduct a high-risk reconnaissance of a disputed maritime zone, gathering critical intelligence without triggering an international incident. The margin for error was microscopic, less than the width of a human hair. Sarah's mind was already mapping out potential scenarios, while other pilots focused on flight paths and fuel calculations. She was constructing a 3-dimensional chess match of geopolitical possibilities. Each potential move was a complex algorithm, each decision a potential butterfly effect that could reshape global dynamics. Her squadron was a carefully selected team of exceptional pilots. Marcus Thompson, the charismatic 3rd-generation military pilot, brought raw instinctual skill. Elena Rodriguez represented a perfect balance of technical precision and adaptive thinking. Jason Chun, with his background in advanced sensor technologies, provided a technological edge that could make the difference between success and catastrophic failure. And then there was Sarah, the wild card that nobody had fully figured out. The pre-mission preparation was a ballet of technological precision. Advanced electronic warfare suites were calibrated, stealth technologies were fine-tuned, and communication protocols were established with near-quantum level encryption. Each piece of equipment was an extension of human potential, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Their aircraft were not mere machines. They were technological marvels that represented the pinnacle of human engineering. The F-35 Lightning. 2 fighters were more than combat vehicles. They were flying supercomputers, capable of processing millions of data points per second, with stealth capabilities that made them ghosts in the technological battlefield. Sarah's preparation went beyond standard mission protocols. While other pilots memorized standard operating procedures, she was developing real-time adaptive strategies. Her background in complex systems analysis allowed her to see the mission not as a linear progression, but as a dynamic, evolving system of interconnected variables. The night before the mission was a study in controlled anticipation. While her fellow pilots tried to relax, Sarah was in the mission planning room, running complex simulation scenarios. Her tablet was a canvas of mathematical possibilities, each calculation a potential lifeline in the complex operational environment they would soon enter. Launch day arrived with a pre-dawn silence that felt almost supernatural. The aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt sat like a floating fortress in the vast Pacific expanse. Preparation was a choreographed dance of human and technological precision. Each crew member moved with a purpose that transcended individual action. As Sarah's aircraft was prepared for launch, something extraordinary happened. The typical pre-mission tension was different. Her squadron looked to her not with the traditional, hierarchical military respect, but with a sense that something unique was about to unfold. The launch sequence was poetry in mechanical motion. Massive electromagnetic catapults transformed multi-ton aircraft into projectiles of human ambition. Sarah's F-35 erupted from the carrier's deck with a precision that seemed to defy physical limitations. Moments after entering the operational zone, the complexity of their mission became immediately apparent. Multiple potential threat vectors emerged simultaneously, a scenario that would have overwhelmed traditional tactical thinking. Where others might have defaulted to standard evasive or engagement protocols, Sarah saw the entire scenario as a fluid, dynamic system. Each potential threat was not an isolated challenge, but part of a larger, interconnected strategic landscape. Her communication with the squadron was unlike anything the mission controllers had ever witnessed. Each transmission was a precisely calculated piece of strategic information, transforming communication from a simple reporting mechanism into a dynamic intelligence-gathering tool. The first major challenge came unexpectedly. A series of advanced radar installations that weren't on any of their initial intelligence briefings suddenly came online. The operational environment transformed in an instant from a known quantity to a completely unpredictable battlefield. Marcus Thompson, flying wing position, began to show signs of tactical uncertainty. Elena Rodriguez was calculating potential retreat scenarios. But Sarah Martinez saw something different, an opportunity hidden within the complexity. Falcon-12 to squadron. Her transmission was calm, almost clinical. Adjust vector. Prepare for asymmetric response. Her fellow pilots might not have understood the full complexity of her strategy in that moment, but they trusted her. The way she had consistently demonstrated an ability to see beyond the immediate, to understand systems in ways others couldn't. As the mission reached its most critical phase, Sarah Martinez was no longer just a pilot. She was a living algorithm, transforming the very nature of aerial reconnaissance. The call sign, Falcon-12, was becoming more than a name. It was becoming a statement of possibility. The sky was no longer a battlefield. It was a canvas of strategic potential. And Sarah was about to paint a masterpiece of human capability. The first sign of trouble came as a whisper of electronic static, a ghost in the most sophisticated communication system the military had ever developed. One moment, the mission's digital nervous system was functioning with perfect synchronicity. The next, it was fragmenting like glass under impossible pressure. Sarah Martinez felt the change before anyone else could articulate it. Her hands moved across the aircraft's control panel with a precision that bordered on prescience. Years of training, of understanding systems not just as mechanical constructs, but as living, breathing entities kicked into overdrive. Command. We're experiencing significant communication interference. Her voice remained clinical, devoid of the panic that would have consumed a lesser pilot. But even as she spoke, she knew this was more than standard electromagnetic disruption. The communication breakdown was a multi-layered assault. Primary communication channels collapsed, first encrypted. Military frequencies went dark in a cascading failure that defied conventional electronic warfare tactics. Backup systems, designed with redundancy that had been considered foolproof, began to falter. Marcus Thompson's voice crackled through the increasingly unstable comm system. What the hell is happening? The usually confident pilot's uncertainty was a tangible thing hanging in the electronic ether. Sarah's mind was already 3 steps ahead. This wasn't just a technical failure. This was a deliberate, sophisticated attack on their entire operational infrastructure. Every system became a potential vulnerability. Every piece of technology, a potential Trojan horse. The squadron's positioning became critically important. They were deep in a zone where communication was their lifeline, their only connection. To base, to each other, to any potential support. Losing that connection was more than a technical problem. It was a potential death sentence. Elena Rodriguez's voice cut through the increasing static. Encryption protocols are compromised. We're going dark. But Sarah saw something the others didn't. The communication breakdown wasn't random. It was a precisely orchestrated attack, with a level of technological sophistication that suggested state-level intervention. Each failed communication channel was a deliberate choice. Each static burst a calculated move in a larger strategic game. Her training kicked into a level beyond standard military preparation. Where others saw chaos, she saw a system waiting to be understood. The communication failure wasn't just a technical challenge, it was a complex mathematical problem begging to be solved. Years of preparation converged in these moments. Her father's lessons about mechanical systems, her mother's approach to solving complex problems, her own relentless pursuit of understanding everything came together with crystalline clarity. Squadron. Her transmission was clean, precise. Implement Communication Protocol Omega-7. Independent navigation. Minimal electromagnetic signature. It was a radical approach. Protocol Omega-7 was a theoretical communication strategy developed for exactly this type of scenario. A method of maintaining operational cohesion when standard communication infrastructure collapsed. Most pilots had only discussed it in theoretical briefings. Sarah was about to make it a reality. The technological assault was multi-layered. Their aircraft systems were being systematically compromised. Navigation computers flickered. Sensor arrays became unreliable. Weapon systems began to show signs of potential lockup. This was beyond standard electronic warfare. This was a surgical strike against their technological infrastructure. Marcus Thompson's aircraft was the first to show critical signs of systemic failure. His navigation systems began to provide conflicting information. His weapon lock capabilities became increasingly erratic. In any other scenario, this would have been a moment of complete operational breakdown. But Sarah saw the pattern. Each system failure was not random. It was a carefully constructed attempt to isolate and vulnerable the squadron. The communication breakdown was a precision instrument designed to create maximum tactical confusion. Her mind worked like a living algorithm. Each failed system was not a problem to be feared, but a piece of a larger puzzle to be solved. She began to develop a real-time counter-strategy, using the very limitations of their compromised systems as a tactical advantage. Elena, Marcus. Her transmission cut through the increasing static with surgical precision. Implement manual override. Treat each system failure as a potential information source. It was a radical approach that defied conventional military thinking. Where standard protocol would suggest retreat or emergency extraction, Sarah was transforming the communication breakdown into an intelligence-gathering opportunity. The squadron's positioning became a critical strategic element. They were deep in a contested zone, with communication infrastructure collapsing around them. But Sarah saw something different. This wasn't a vulnerability. This was an opportunity. Her hands moved across the aircraft's manual override systems with a speed and precision that seemed to defy human limitation. Each adjustment was a calculated response. Each manual override a strategic decision that transformed their compromised technology into a weapon. The communication breakdown became a canvas, and Sarah Martinez was painting a masterpiece of technological adaptation. As the mission reached its most critical phase, the line between pilot and living algorithm began to blur. The call sign Falcon-12 was no longer just a name. It was becoming a statement of human potential, a declaration that true excellence emerges not from perfect conditions, but from the ability to transform limitations into opportunities. The sky was no longer just a battlefield. It was a complex system waiting to be understood. And Sarah Martinez was about to show everyone exactly how deep that understanding could go. Time became a living thing, elastic, dangerous, pregnant with possibility. Fuel levels were dropping like stones through water. Enemy radar signatures danced across compromised electronic systems like predators circling wounded prey. The mission had transformed from a strategic reconnaissance into a fight for pure survival, with Sarah Martinez at the epicenter of a technological and human drama that defied conventional understanding. The control tower thousands of miles away was a crucible of tension. Monitors flickered with fragmented data, communication channels reduced to ghost whispers. Senior strategists watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as the squadron situation deteriorated beyond any predictable scenario. Admiral Catherine Reynolds, a veteran strategist with 4 decades of military experience, understood immediately that this was no ordinary mission failure. Her steel-gray eyes tracked the disintegrating mission parameters with a calculation that matched Sarah's own analytical approach. "Martinez is our only hope," she muttered to her senior communications officer. "If anyone can navigate this clusterfuck, it's her." Sarah's mind was operating at a frequency beyond standard human processing. Each compromised system wasn't a limitation. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. The communication breakdown, the failing electronic infrastructure, the increasingly complex threat environment, these were not obstacles. They were variables in an equation she was solving in real time. Her squadron mates watched with a mixture of awe and terror. Marcus Thompson, typically the most confident pilot, was reduced to following her lead. Elena Rodriguez's technical expertise was being systematically overwhelmed by the mission's increasing complexity. Falcon-12, Marcus's voice crackled through. "The failing communication system. We're running out of options." But Sarah saw options where others saw only darkness. The geographical context was critical. They were operating in a maritime zone that was essentially a geopolitical powder keg, a region where international tensions simmered just below the surface of diplomatic civility. One wrong move could trigger an international incident that would make previous global conflicts look like diplomatic tea parties. Her approach defied every standard military protocol. Where traditional strategy would suggest retreat or engagement, Sarah was constructing a third option, a path that transformed their vulnerability into a strategic advantage. The aircraft systems were failing systematically. Navigation computers provided conflicting information. Sensor arrays flickered between functionality and complete breakdown. Weapon systems became unreliable, their electronic signatures as unpredictable as quantum particles. But Sarah understood something fundamental that her training and her entire life had prepared her for. Systems are not static. They are dynamic, living entities that can be understood, manipulated, repurposed. She began to use the very failures of their technological infrastructure as a form of tactical camouflage. The compromised electronic systems became a shield, their seemingly random behavior, a form of advanced stealth technology that no conventional radar could properly interpret. New flight vector. Her transmission cut through the static with surgical precision. "We're going to use our limitations as our greatest strength." Her squadron mates didn't just hear instruction. They heard a declaration of possibility. The flight path she constructed was nothing short of mathematical poetry. It wasn't just about avoiding detection. It was about transforming their entire operational profile into something that defied conventional understanding. Each adjustment was a calculated risk, each movement a precise mathematical calculation that considered not just immediate survival, but potential long-term strategic implications. Admiral Reynolds, watching from the command center thousands of miles away, found herself holding her breath. The mission had transformed from a standard reconnaissance operation into something that was rewriting the very rules of military engagement. Fuel was becoming critically low. Their position was increasingly compromised. Traditional military doctrine would have dictated an immediate extraction or aggressive engagement. But Sarah saw a third path away of turning their most significant vulnerabilities into their greatest strength. The geographical complexity of their environment became her greatest ally. Maritime zones with complex radar signatures, areas of electromagnetic interference, regions where technological systems became unreliable. These were not challenges. These were opportunities. Her hands moved across the aircraft's manual override systems with a speed and precision that seemed to defy human limitation. Each adjustment was a calculated response, each manual override a strategic decision that transformed their compromised technology into a weapon. Falcon-12 to control. Her transmission was calm, almost clinical, implementing adaptive navigation protocol. Prepare for unconventional approach. In the command center, Admiral Reynolds understood immediately. This wasn't just a pilot speaking. This was a living system of human and technological potential, rewriting operational parameters in real time. The critical moment was approaching. Everything Sarah Martinez had prepared for, every lesson from her father about mechanical systems, every mathematical challenge from her mother, every moment of training that had seemed impossible, was converging into this singular point of potential. Her call sign wasn't just a name anymore. Falcon-12 was becoming a verb, a way of describing the impossible becoming possible. As the mission reached its most critical phase, the line between pilot, aircraft, and living algorithm completely dissolved. Sarah Martinez was no longer just navigating a technological crisis. She was conducting a symphony of human potential, using every limitation as a note in a complex, beautiful composition of survival and strategic brilliance. The sky was no longer just a battlefield. It was a canvas of infinite possibility. And Sarah Martinez was about to paint a masterpiece that would redefine everything everyone thought they knew about human potential. The debriefing room was unlike any standard military conference space. It felt more like a cathedral of human potential, a place where conventional wisdom came to be challenged and rewritten. Admiral Catherine Reynolds sat at the head of the table, her decades of military experience etched into every line of her face. Classified intelligence reports, mission telemetry data, and technological assessments created a complex mosaic of Sarah Martinez's unprecedented mission. What we witnessed, the Admiral began, her voice cutting through the room like a precision instrument, was not just a successful mission. It was a fundamental reimagining of military operational capabilities. The mission data told a story that defied conventional military understanding. Where traditional reconnaissance missions might have resulted in partial intelligence or potential compromise, Sarah had transformed a potential disaster into a strategic masterpiece. The intelligence gathered was so comprehensive, so nuanced, that it promised to reshape geopolitical strategic planning for years to come. Senior military strategists from multiple branches sat in stunned silence. These were men and women who had seen virtually every possible operational scenario, veterans who thought they had witnessed the limits of human and technological potential. Sarah Martinez had just shown them those limits were an illusion. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead military psychologist, presented a comprehensive analysis that was nothing short of revolutionary. Martinez doesn't just solve problems, she explained. Her presentation filled with complex neural mapping and performance data. She fundamentally reimagines the entire operational framework. The technological implications were staggering. Sarah's approach during the mission had demonstrated capabilities that went far beyond standard military training. She had effectively created a new paradigm of human-technology interaction, method of operating that transformed limitations into strategic advantages. Military leadership from multiple international allies began to take notice. This wasn't just an American military success. This was a fundamental shift in understanding human potential in complex operational environments. Sarah herself sat through the debriefing with a calm that both impressed and unnerved her superiors. Where others might have been basking in the glory of their success, she was already analyzing the mission's data, looking for future improvements for the next challenge. Her squadron mates watched her with a mixture of respect and something approaching awe. Marcus Thompson, once the most confident pilot in their group, now looked at Sarah with a sense of genuine admiration. Elena Rodriguez saw her not just as a colleague, but as a living example of what human potential could truly represent. The media coverage, though carefully controlled, began to paint a picture that went far beyond a standard military success story. Here was a narrative of breakthrough, a woman who had not just succeeded, but had fundamentally challenged every preconceived notion about capability, potential, and limitation. International intelligence agencies began to take serious notice. The mission's success wasn't just a military achievement, it was a geopolitical game-changer. The intelligence gathered promised to reshape diplomatic and strategic conversations at the highest levels of global governance. Admiral Reynolds understood something profound. This wasn't just about one mission or one pilot. This was about a fundamental shift in human capability. Martinez represents more than an individual success, she told a closed-door congressional hearing. She represents a new understanding of human potential. The technological breakthrough was perhaps most fascinating to the scientific community. Sarah's method of navigating compromised systems, of transforming technological limitations into strategic advantages, promised applications far beyond military operations. Technology researchers saw potential breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, in complex system management, in understanding human cognitive capabilities. Her parents watched the unfolding recognition with a mixture of pride and surreal disbelief. Roberto Martinez, the retired Air Force mechanic, saw in his daughter's achievement the culmination of every lesson he had ever shared about understanding systems. Elena Martinez, the high school science teacher, recognized the fundamental scientific breakthrough her daughter represented. Awards and recognition began to pour in. But for Sarah, these were almost incidental. She was already looking forward, already analyzing the next challenge, the next opportunity to push human understanding further. The call sign Falcon-12 had transformed from a private family nickname to an international symbol of possibility. It represented something far more profound than individual achievement. It was a declaration that human potential was limited only by imagination and systematic thinking. Military training programs began to reshape themselves, inspired by Sarah's approach, where traditional training had focused on rigid protocols and standardized responses. A new methodology began to emerge, one that prioritized adaptive thinking, system understanding, and the ability to transform limitations into strengths. International military academies began to study our mission, not as a singular event, but as a case study in reimagining operational capabilities. Her approach promised to reshape military strategy, technological integration, and understanding of human cognitive potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's psychological analysis became required reading in military and technological research institutions. Martinez demonstrates a cognitive approach that goes beyond traditional problem-solving, her report concluded. She doesn't just navigate complex systems, she fundamentally reimagines them. As the recognition reached its peak, Sarah remained characteristically focused. The mission, the recognition, these were not endpoints. They were simply waypoints in a much larger journey of understanding. Her next steps were already taking shape. Discussions about advanced research positions, about pushing the boundaries of human-technology interaction began to circulate in scientific and military circles. The call sign, Falcon-12, had become more than a name. It was a symbol of possibility, a declaration that human potential was an ever-expanding frontier waiting to be explored. And Sarah Martinez was just getting started. The sky was no longer a limit. It was an invitation. The training facility stood as a testament to human potential, a modern architectural marvel that seemed to defy gravity itself. Glass and steel rose against the Florida sky, a physical manifestation of the boundaries Sarah Martinez had spent her entire life pushing. 20 years had passed since her groundbreaking mission. The woman who had once been known simply as Falcon-12 was now Dr. Sarah Martinez, a name that carried weight in military, technological, and academic circles worldwide. Her role had transformed from a singular pilot to a global thought leader in human technology integration. The new generation of military candidates looked at her with a mixture of reverence and anticipation. These were not just students. They were potential revolutionaries, selected from thousands of applicants, drawn by the legend of the woman who had fundamentally reshaped understanding of human potential. Her lecture hall was unlike any traditional military training space. It was a collaborative environment, more reminiscent of a cutting-edge research facility than a standard classroom. Interactive holographic displays danced with complex system models. Advanced neural interface technologies lined the walls, each a testament to the field she had helped create. Potential is not a destination, Sarah began, her voice carrying the same precise clarity that had defined her military career. It's a continuous journey of reimagining what's possible. The students represented a new breed of military professionals. They were not just pilots or strategists. They were cognitive engineers, system designers, individuals who understood that modern conflict and human achievement was about understanding complex interconnected systems. Her own journey had been anything but traditional. After her legendary mission, Sarah had not simply rested on her laurels. She had pursued a doctoral degree in cognitive systems engineering, bridging military strategy, advanced technology, and human performance psychology. Her research had revolutionized multiple fields. Military training programs worldwide had been redesigned based on her groundbreaking work. Technology companies sought her insights on adaptive artificial intelligence. Academic institutions created entire departments inspired by her approach to understanding human potential. But for Sarah, the most important work happened right here, in this training facility, with these young minds who represented the future of human capability. Elena Rodriguez, now a senior research director and one of Sarah's closest collaborators, watched from the back of the lecture hall. Their friendship had evolved from military colleagues to partners in reshaping human understanding. The systems we navigate, Sarah continued, her holographic presentation showing increasingly complex interconnected models, are living, breathing entities. They are not static. They are not fixed. They are opportunities waiting to be understood. Her personal story had become almost mythological. The daughter of a mechanic and a science teacher who had transformed military strategy. The woman who had turned a potentially catastrophic mission into a breakthrough of global significance. But Sarah never allowed the mythology to overshadow the fundamental message. Human potential is limitless when approached with systematic thinking, adaptability, and an unwavering commitment to understanding. The training program she had developed was revolutionary. Candidates were no longer evaluated on traditional metrics: physical fitness, technical knowledge, standard psychological profiles. They were assessed on their ability to see systems, to transform limitations into opportunities, to think beyond conventional boundaries. Her mentorship extended far beyond formal training. She sought out candidates who didn't fit traditional molds. Individuals from diverse backgrounds with unique perspectives, those who saw the world differently. Marcus Thompson, her former squadron mate, now led international military strategy development. He had become one of her strongest advocates, helping to implement the cognitive approach she had pioneered. Sarah doesn't just teach, he often said in international conferences. She provides an entire framework for understanding human potential. Her parents, now in their later years, watched their daughter's journey with a sense of profound pride. Roberto Martinez, the mechanic who had first inspired her love for systems, would spend hours discussing her latest research. Elena Martinez, the science teacher, saw in her daughter's work the purest expression of scientific curiosity. The call sign Falcon-12 had transformed from a private family nickname to a global symbol of possibility. It represented a philosophy, an approach to understanding human potential that transcended military strategy, technological development, and traditional educational models. International awards and recognitions continued to find her, but Sarah remained characteristically focused on the work. Each achievement was not an endpoint, but a waypoint in a continuous journey of discovery. Her current research promised to push boundaries even further. Collaborative projects exploring human-artificial intelligence integration, advanced cognitive system design, methods of understanding and navigating increasingly complex global challenges. The students in her lecture hall represented more than a new generation of military professionals. They were potential architects of human potential, individuals who understood that the greatest limitations are the ones we impose on ourselves. Your job, she told them, her eyes blazing with the same intensity that had defined her military career, is not to follow existing systems. Your job is to reimagine them. As the lecture concluded, the room erupted in an energy that was part academic excitement, part revolutionary potential. These were not just students. These were future system designers, cognitive engineers, individuals who would continue the work of pushing human understanding forward. Sarah Martinez walked from the lecture hall, her mind already processing the next challenge, the next opportunity to expand human potential. The call sign Falcon-12 was no longer just a name. It was a philosophy, a method of engaging with the world's complexity. The sky was no longer a limit. It was an invitation, a continuous, ever-expanding frontier of possibility. And the journey was just beginning.